All right, 7th graders, so hopefully you guys are very thorough and you made it down to the last slide and you found this special video in which I'm going to go through the answers of your guys' review. Feel free to correct anything, okay? All right, so your first section for this was genotypes and phenotypes. We talk about just the definition of a genotype and a phenotype. I'm going to go through some of these just verbally with you guys, and then other ones that are a little bit easy, I'll just use the draw tool to write an answer for you guys. So what is a genotype? Remember that the genotype is basically what we see in our genes, and it's not always easy for us to see. But how I want to define that is it's the combination of our genes or alleles that parents pass down to us. So combination of genes or alleles. Okay, and give an example of a genotype. So remember, we always have two alleles, which we use letters to represent our alleles. So you guys really could do just about anything. It doesn't matter which letter of the alphabet you guys pick. You guys could see something along the line of big A, big A. You guys could do a different letter and do big B, little b. Or you guys could do something really crazy and do like Q's, little q, little q. Okay? All three of those, no matter what letter you chose, the combinations of dominant and recessive or capital and lowercase are all good examples of what a genotype might look like. Okay? What is a phenotype? So on the other hand, a phenotype is our physical appearance. Remember that I like to look at this little pH and say, all right, pH, physical appearance. Okay? Physical starts with pH as well. So the phenotype is the physical appearance for a trait that a person has. So an example for that one might be something like brown eyes. Okay, if we're looking at the trait of eye colors, we can see brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, hazel eyes. Those are all different phenotypes. So there's a couple examples for you there. Obviously, if you guys have something that's sufficient, you don't have to change your answer. All right, these, I'm just going to breeze through these really quick. So if we are looking at a bunch of different genotypes, but we're looking for specifically homozygous. Remember, homo means the same. So we're looking for something that either has two dominant alleles or two recessive alleles, but either way they're the same. So big H, we have two dominant there. Big A, little a would be heterozygous because it has a dominant and a recessive, or an uppercase and a lowercase. Little t is two lowercase, so homozygous recessive. Little d, two recessive, and big F, little f is heterozygous, so we're not going to highlight that one. On the other hand, we have heterozygous, so again, we're looking for a dominant and a recessive trait, or in this case, a uppercase and lowercase letter. So there's a dominant and recessive trait. There's a dominant and recessive trait, and that's the only one. The other ones are all homozygous. They're all the same. Okay? Moving on, homozygous dominant, that's similar to the first one we did, except we're only looking for dominant traits. So big L, big U, big U, excuse me. Homozygous recessive, again, homo means the same, so we're only looking for genotypes that have two of the same recessive alleles. Little e, little g, little g. Okay, finally, genotype in which the dominant phenotype will show. So we're looking for a genotype that's going to give us the dominant phenotype. So basically anything that has the dominant allele there, any capital letter. So this one has a dominant allele that's passed down, therefore we'll see the dominant phenotype. This one has two dominant alleles, so we'll definitely see the dominant phenotype. This one has one, so we'll see the dominant phenotype, and this one again has two. This one will give us the recessive phenotype. Finally, genotype in which the recessive phenotype will show. The only way we can inherit the recessive phenotype is if both parents pass down the recessive allele. So we would be looking for homozygous recessive. So that is the only one out of there that gives us a recessive phenotype. Okay, moving on, we have these. I'm just going to kind of go through the phenotype verbally on these. So big M, if we were to look up here, that would give us mid-digital finger hair. Okay, little t is cannot taste PTC, so I have that genotype because I can't taste the PTC. Big E, little e, if I go up here, I'm going to have free earlobes. Big D, I'm going to have dimples. Little h, I'm going to be left-handed. Big D, I'm going to have dimples. Big T, I'm going to be a PTC taster. And little e, I'm going to have attached earlobes. Okay? Alright, sorry, I had to respond to that phone call. Alright, next one is looking at our genotype. So I'm going to use the draw tool for this one. Okay? Alright. For this one, no dimples. So we know that no dimples is a recessive trait, so the only way we're getting that trait is if both parents pass down the recessive allele, so little d, little d. Homozygous PTC taster, we have a little bit more information there. So we know it's homozygous, and then we also know that PTC tasting is a dominant trait. So if it's homozygous, it's actually going to be homozygous dominant, so big T, big T. Okay, heterozygous right-handed, again, right-handedness is dominant. We're using H's, and because it's heterozygous, we know we have a dominant allele and a recessive allele. So big H, little h. Bald mid-digits, if you do not have any hair on your mid-digits, this will be your genotype. On this one, you guys can see that that is a recessive trait. So again, the only way to get that is to get that passed down from both parents. Free earlobes, this is one of those twofers because we know that earlobe attachment is, the free earlobes is dominant. So there's two options for that. You can either be big E, or you can be big E, little e. So both of those would give you guys free earlobes. I didn't give you enough information for you guys to say exactly which one is which. Hairy mid-digits, on the other hand, again, if we look at that same thing, mid-digital finger hair is dominant, so we could either be big M, or big M, little m. Okay? And then finally, non-PTC taster, that's a recessive trait. So again, the only way we're going to get that is if both parents pass it down. So little t, little t. Okay? Those are your guys' answers for that table. Moving on to your monohybrid crosses. All right, so in cattle, black coat, big B, is dominant over red coat. Two heterozygous black cows are mated. Okay, so they're both heterozygous, so we can kind of skip a little bit ahead. I'm going to choose a different pen for you guys here. Your trait study is going to be coat color, so I'm going to let you guys write that in there. The dominant allele and phenotype, so dominant is black, and it's a capital B. I'm just going to write in the capital B there. I guess I can write a little black in there. Okay, and our recessive is going to be a lowercase b, and that one's going to be red coat. Okay, mother's genotype and father's genotype, since they're both heterozygous, they're both going to have one dominant and one recessive allele, so big B, little b. Okay, main thing here though is you guys are going to fill out your Punnett square right here, where we separate the parents' alleles, and then we can go ahead and fill out what the offspring's genotypes might be. Okay, and then we can look at the questions. So you guys have a couple different options for the questions. You guys could either type your answers in there, or you guys can just write them. First question asks us, what is the probability the offspring will have a black phenotype? So if we look at this, these three offspring would all potentially have a black. So that's 3 out of 4. So you guys could either write 3 out of 4, or you guys could write 75%. Okay? All right, what is the probability the offspring will have a homozygous genotype? So if we look at that, these ones here are homozygous. So it could be homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive. The question isn't specific, so we'll say either or. So that's going to be either 2 out of 4, or 2 out of 4 is 50%. So either percentage or fraction works just fine. And then what is the probability offspring will have a genotype that matches the parents? So remember that the genotype for the parents is big B, little b. So of the offspring, which one would have that same genotype? You guys have, again, 2 out of 4 here, or you guys have 50%. Okay, so either one of those answers would work. Okay, moving on, I'm only going to probably do your questions, the Punnett square for you guys. So chickens can either have yellow skin or they can have white skin. So yellow skin Y, capital Y, is dominant over white, lowercase y. A homozygous yellow skinned rooster is crossed with a heterozygous yellow skinned hen. So let's take a look at that one. Okay, trait study to skin color. The dominant allele is capital Y, and it is going to be yellow skin. The recessive allele is lowercase y, and it's going to be white skinned. Mother's genotype, so it says the hen is heterozygous, so she's going to be big Y, little y. And the father is the rooster. He is going to be a homozygous yellow skinned. So he's going to be dominant, and it's homozygous, so big Y, big Y. We can go ahead and place our alleles that the parents would pass down on our Punnett square. So there's dad, here's mom, and then we can do our cross, big Y, big Y. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Big Y, big Y. Sorry, guys. Big Y, little y, big Y, and big Y, little y. Okay, and then we can answer our questions. What is the probability the offspring will have yellow skin? So if we look at our Punnett square, looks like 100% all of those individuals are going to get at least one dominant allele, so 100% would have yellow skin. What is the genotypic ratio of the offspring? So remember, for that one, we look at all the different types of genotypes we might have for the offspring, and then we list them. So for this one, we would have 2 big Ys, and then we do a little colon, and we say 2 big Y, little y. So we list the numbers of each genotype we see, and then also each genotype we see separated by a colon. Okay, next question. Pea plants can either be tall, which is dominant, or short, which is recessive. A short plant is crossed with a homozygous dominant plant. On these, you don't really know mother or father. It doesn't matter, okay? So trait studied is going to be plant height. Dominant is going to be tall, which it looks like we're using T, so we're going to use a capital T. Recessive is a lowercase t, and we're calling that short. The mother's phenotype, again, we can just look at the first parent. So a short plant, knowing that that is the recessive, that mom has the genotype little t, little t. Okay? And father is homozygous dominant, so big T, big T. Okay? We'll go ahead and split the alleles up here. Again, it didn't matter which parents are which or which one we put on which side. But all of these offspring will have the same genotype. So all of them will be big T, little t. Okay? All right, what is the probability the offspring will have a short phenotype? That's a big fat 0%. None of those offspring are little t, and that's the only genotype that could give that short phenotype since it's recessive. So 0% for that first question. What is the probability the offspring will have a homozygous genotype? Again, that's a big fat 0% because all of those offspring happen to be heterozygous. Okay, and then finally, what is the probability the offspring will have a genotype that matches the parents? Again, big fat 0, okay? Because our parents are either little t, big T, and all of our offspring are heterozygous, big T, little t. So 0% for all 3 of those answers. Okay, last little problem here. In pigs, droopy ears, little d, are the recessive trait compared to pointy ears. A droopy-eared boar, which is a male, is crossed with a heterozygous sow. Okay, so let's go ahead and plan some of this out. The trait study is going to be ear droop or ear shape or however you guys want to define it. The dominant allele is going to be your capital D, which is pointy ears. I'm going to write that one in there. I'm just going to put point. And lowercase d will be droop. Okay, mother's genotype. So remember, she's our sow. So she's heterozygous. She's going to be big D, little d. Dad is our, oops, sorry, I did that on the wrong spot. Dad is our boar. So he is going to be a droopy-eared guy. He is a recessive, so he is little d, little d. And then we'll go ahead and fill out our Punnett square. Big D, little d, big D, little d, little d, little d, little d, little d. All right, so for our answers, what is the phenotypic ratio of the offspring? Remember, for that one, we look at all the different phenotypes. These 2 are droopy-eared, these 2 are pointy-eared, and we'd say, all right, 2, write this in, 2 droopy, and then I separate with a colon and say to 2 pointy. Okay, genotypic ratio, again, it's the same. You guys are just talking about the different genotypes you see. So for this one, it would be 2 big D, little d, to 2 little d, little d. It's not often either that you guys have the same ratio for phenotype and genotype. That's just kind of how this type of genetic problem fell. But if maybe we had 2 individuals that are both heterozygous being crossed, we'd see a lot different phenotypes and genotypes. Okay, what is the probability that one of the offspring will share the same phenotype as either parents? So remember that the mother was pointy-eared and the father was droop-eared. So we have both of those phenotypes in the offspring. So 100% they're going to look like one of the parents. Okay, so 100% on that one. And finally, what is the probability that one of the offspring will have droopy ears? Okay, that one's a little bit more specific because only dad has droopy ears. So for that one, we'd only look at these two individuals here. So our answer would be either 2 out of 4 or 50%. Okay. All right, so that pretty much wraps up your guys' review for the day. Again, feel free. I hope you guys fixed anything, turned it in correctly. If you guys have questions, let me know. If not, I will talk to you later.